You don't go there just to do your time. Like, you go there like to get better.
The skeptics will say that kind of approach will not work with these kids in California. Well, they're showing it does work with kids in California.
It's about changing your thinking, because that affects every aspect of your life.
These programs do work, and simply putting people away does not.
I'd probably be back gangbanging or in jail right now if I didn't come here.
People have forgotten, because America's done such an incredible job of incarcerating people, that the goal of the system is not to have more inmates, it's to have fewer victims.
California locks up more youth than any other state in the nation, frequently for minor offenses. This over-reliance on detention and prisons has resulted in high costs at the local and state level without real public safety benefit. Nearly 3 out of 4 youth that go to the state's youth prison system are rearrested within 3 years. At a cost of $240,000 per year per youth, the current system is failing taxpayers, the community, and young people. But there is hope. By implementing proven techniques, local juvenile justice systems across the country have reduced crime, saved money, and helped youth turn mistakes into motivation. These local systems have paid attention to the key decisions and programs that can either lead to a youth's success or failure.
There's a lot of evidence that shows that detaining kids has a lot of bad negative impacts on the kids' lives. So you take a low-level offender and put them in an evening reporting center, and another low-level offender and put them in a detention facility, the odds that the one in a detention facility will get rearrested for another crime are higher.
We have essentially criminalized normal adolescent behavior. If you're in a zero-tolerance public school, and you're walking down the hall and somebody's making fun of your girlfriend and you're making fun of their mama and y'all are pushing and shoving, that is what teenagers call a great time. If you're in a zero-tolerance school that has a no-touching policy, you are now suspended. Whereas if you're going to the country day school that your parents are paying $30,000 a year for, there is no zero tolerance. Those parents are paying for tolerance, not zero tolerance. Young people of color represent about 38% of the population and are incarcerated at a rate of about 72%. So they are incarcerated at a number that is twice their representation in the population. And what we do is we help jurisdictions find out why.
We really do have a disproportionate amount of Latinos or children of color in this institution, but it seems like the majority of the white kids go home. What's going on here? So we have to take a critical look and come up with some solutions.
In the state of California, once a youth is charged with a crime, the judge decides whether the youth will remain at home or whether the youth needs to be locked up in juvenile hall pending his or her adjudication, the youth equivalent of a trial.
So in systems where you don't have a good risk screening instrument or you don't have good detention alternatives, kids of color tend to go in greater numbers than they ought to and stay longer than they ought to. But if you have a good screening mechanism and you say, no, we're only going to lock kids up if they surpass this threshold, well then you should be able to screen out all those frivolous or less serious cases.
So when you spend time, I mean, what?
If you were to take that population in juvenile hall, you could get rid of about 40% of that population because they're in there for probation violations, placement failures, and failure to appears, or some of those administrative minor offenses.
The W. Haywood Burns Institute and the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative offer tools to determine which kids really need to be in juvenile hall, which youth are better served by programs within their communities, and how to reduce racial disparities.
JDAI is an initiative to educate juvenile justice agencies, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys on who do we really need to detain, and it's a much smaller number than who is really detained around the country. And then there's alternatives. We use things like evening reporting centers. So instead of being locked up until your court hearing process is over, you go home, but every day we have a community organization that picks you up from school, takes you to their organization until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and then drives you home, and you have a curfew. You have to stay home until you wake up for school the next day. We have a 95% success rate with evening reporting centers.
So if you can get a kid to come back to court without getting rearrested through an evening reporting center or an in-home family service program, great. Why waste 4 to 5 times as much money putting a kid in a locked cell?
JDAI sites, on average, have reduced their reliance on secure detention by 35%. In most JDAI sites, public safety has improved, and it has saved taxpayers millions of dollars.
My name is Jake Newman. When my parents and all their friends were talking, and they've all been to prison, I would sit there and just hide around the corner and listen to them. Just, man, that sounds so cool. I want to go to prison so I can sound tough. I want to get tattoos all over. That was just what I wanted to be.
My name is Anthony Martinez. I just started gangbanging. I didn't really know what it was about back then. I was just a little kid. Felt like I belonged. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know. Wish I did know, but I know now, so.
My name is Joanna Molina. I was on drugs, so I was numb. I didn't feel like inside. I dropped out of school and I couldn't find a job. At home, we were having problems with money, and I was like stressed out a lot.
Once a youth has been found delinquent, judges have a number of options where he or she may be sent. Just like at the pre-adjudication stage, many California juvenile systems rely far too heavily on secure institutional settings like county boot camps or the Division of Juvenile Justice, which have been plagued by scandal and conflict.
In the 90s, the California youth prison system became notorious for failures at every level. Little to no programming, excessive use of solitary confinement, widespread violence inside, and the youth prison system was sued. And in the 4 years since that lawsuit was settled, little to no progress has been made. 3 out of 4 youth who come out of the system end up back in. And it's costing hundreds of millions of dollars. It costs $234,000 per youth per year in the California youth prison system. So in the years and years of struggle for a better system, we've seen nothing in return.
Just like in the pre-adjudication stage, states and counties around the country have been able to reduce their expensive reliance on these antiquated facilities by using JDAI to identify which youth could be better served by community-based programs. Washington, D.C. and Santa Clara County, California are 2 examples of systems that safely reduced the number of youth in secure care.
We brought in national experts, the National Council on Crime and Delinquency and many others, to help us create tools and assessments to make sure that we're only locking up those young men and women who are a public safety risk. And so we expanded our continuum of care, so we have a robust community services continuum where we have therapeutic group homes, we have in-home family services, multisystemic therapy, multidimensional treatment foster care, where we increase the number of our case managers and social workers within the agency so that they can have lower caseloads and spend more time with youth so that we can serve more youth in the community. And that has worked. We have significantly increased the number of youth who are in the community under our supervision while reducing the serious juvenile crime rate.
So New Beginnings is a commitment facility. It's not for detained kids. It's for kids who the judges feel need to be in the care of my department. And my department has 770 kids in its care, and about 50 of them are locked up in this facility, which is our only secure facility. But most of our kids are not here. We reserve this for the deeper end kids that we get committed to us. People have forgotten, because America's done such an incredible job of incarcerating people, that the goal of the system is not to have more inmates, it's to have fewer victims. It's about what is the best way to make our society safe.
Fighting, cussing, drugs, guns, all types of bad.
Staff beat the kids up, the kids beat the staff up, the kids beat each other up.
Again, dominated by a gang
It's really
subculture.
a dark, decrepit place.
Sort of anarchy that was going on there.
There could be a lot of time in this room spent. It just feels different.
It was always a fight against staff or a fight, a resident versus a resident. But it was tough to be down here.
Oak Hill was Washington, D.C.'s equivalent of a state youth prison system, like California's Division of Juvenile Justice. Oak Hill was run down, notorious for abuse, and subject to an ongoing lawsuit.
When I got here 5 years ago, the department was kind of broken in almost every way you can imagine a department being broken. From treatment of young people to abuse to physical plant conditions, the place was really in decrepit shape.
When this administration took over in 2005, it had 240 youth, although it was a 180-bed facility. There was no structured programming at all, and a Blue Ribbon Commission in 2003 for the District of Columbia came back with a report saying that they should close the facility altogether and in its place build a facility that runs on a system close to Missouri's juvenile justice system.
Youth who have gotten in the most serious trouble can turn their lives around. Rather than providing the intense services these youth need, we often isolate these youth in remote youth prisons, adding damage to damage. There is a better way. One of the first and most successful intensive rehabilitative models is the Missouri model.
In Missouri, I would say there's several things that are the key ingredients: the staff, the environment, the number of kids you have in a group, and how they can feel safe enough to deal with these issues and really be able to discuss their core issues that they have to deal with.
And so they are incarcerated, and so they're removed from the public, but their principles are smaller, closer to the young people's homes, more therapeutic and rehabilitative. They're going to get education, they're going to get mental health services, they're going to get behavioral health services, they're going to get rehabilitation and life skills and cognitive restructuring, and that's the thought and design behind New Beginnings.
In 2006, we were looking at our failure rate. 4 out of 10 youth were failing the program. We tried the behavior modification program, but they did not internalize any changes. So we started looking around the country, and we heard about the Missouri model. When we went there, I think it's probably the first time in a long time that we all agreed that this was something that was really outstanding. I'm very, very impressed from the get-go of what we saw. Now, some of the key elements that we brought back from Missouri, one of the most important one was the idea of small groups. So you could actually talk about some of the more deep-rooted issues that you can't talk about in a larger group.
The groups here in the ranch, they're used for a lot of different things. They can be light groups to pretty intense groups. You know, say there's an argument, heated argument, or someone's acting up, the staff will be like, group it up, and everyone forms a group, starts talking, and works it out instead of just slapping the cuffs on and sending you back to the hall. Because a lot of times you only see things from your aspect, so by grouping up, it gives you a chance to calm down and see all aspects.
When I first got here, I was really aggressive. I didn't have any respect for myself, so sure as heck wasn't gonna respect anybody else. I remember that there was this instance where I was arguing with a counselor, and I was mad. I mean, I don't know, I was like really, really mad, and I just sat there and I just thought to myself, like, all right, calm down. And then the next day I realized that, like, I'd never done that in my life. I've never really sat there and like, all right, don't do this, don't. You know what I'm saying? Don't freak out right now. And I was like, I can do this. This doesn't seem so hard now.
By all measures, adopting the Missouri model in Washington, D.C. and in Santa Clara County has been successful. While youth prisons like the DJJ have a recidivism rate of over 70%, the Missouri system has maintained a 7% recidivism rate and helped like programs improve youth outcomes.
There's really no reason to maintain the DJJ system anymore. You can take the $400 million that we currently invest in DJJ, transfer a portion of it back to the counties, let the counties expand their array of services, both institutional and preferably non-institutional services, and let's start to redesign and restructure juvenile justice services in California in a way that is up to the challenges of the 21st century.
California counties can definitely afford this kind of system because if you can really assess which kids need to be in secure confinement and which don't, and use a continuum of these other alternatives for the less serious offenders, you should be able to afford the whole thing with the amount of money that just got realigned to the counties.
Simply locking young people up and putting them in the institution is truly not the solution, and those community-based programs need to exist.
In communities across the nation, local and state governments have reduced their populations of incarcerated youth, closed abusive youth prisons, and supported programs that bring out young people's talents. These reforms have saved taxpayers money, given people a second chance, and strengthened communities. The choice is clear. The steps are clear. We have the resources, and we have the knowledge. Now, it's time to get to work.
It's like they believe in me, and like a lot. So when they would tell me, you know, you could go to college, and now I'm like, yeah, I know I can. You know, I'm gonna go.
I pray for guidance and protection. I look forward now going to school. Just recently, for like the second times in my life, my dad told me he was proud of me, and that made me just like, all right, I'm doing this. This ain't just about passing the programs. I can really become a better person.
While I was here, they just helped me realize how to make better choices and what I did wrong in the past, how I could do better in the future, and what to work on now. So I'm living hope, if anything.
And loveliness